So what you were looking at was an art exhibit from the 50th anniversary of D-Day. Geez, I guess it's almost 8 years ago now, that volunteers, hundreds of them, lined the beach of a place in France called Normandy. And they used these templates to rake the sand, one for each casualty that day on the beaches. It was a way to remember the immense sacrifice that Allied troops endured to take the fight not just from the East in the Soviet Union, not just from the South in Italy, but to Germany itself through Western Europe, a place that was called Fortress Europe because it was considered almost invincible. We called this process Operation Overlord, our code name for the invasion of France, and through clever use of spies and intelligence, we were able to convince the Axis powers that we were not going to attack where we did. So that when our troops landed on D-Day, June 6, 1944, in Normandy, where those templates were raked into the ground, even though thousands died, even though it was nearly a defeat. In fact, General Eisenhower nearly gave the order to retreat. He was preparing to do it. We were successful. It started a fierce 2 months of fighting, tooth and nail, day after day, village by village, bridge by bridge, for us to reach Paris, topple the Nazi government of France, and begin the liberation of that country. America and our British allies, we got a little overconfident. As 1944 was coming to an end in December of 1944, the weather was cloudy, it was dark. Our planes weren't able to run and rule the sky. And the Germans threw everything they had at the Allied powers coming through France. And they pushed our lines back almost to the sea. I mean, nearly to the sea. It was almost a complete collapse of our lines. We call it the Battle of the Bulge because the line that was like this bent backwards as the Germans were able to take their army and drive it back. And just on the other side, just a little bit away, was the ocean. Had they defeated us there, it's a good chance we would have had to retreat from Western Europe. They had early success because of that cloud cover that kept our planes out of the sky, but they could not move their materials or supplies or troops as fast as we could. They were running low on gas and oil. Ultimately, because they were unable to move their material and men as fast as we could, and thankfully the skies cleared and reinforcements arrived faster than expected, we won that battle. We also had a different kind of victory because even though President Roosevelt won a fourth term in office, more than anyone ever, it would have been his 16th, up to his 16th year in power. His health finally failed in the spring after the Battle of the Bulge, and Harry Truman took charge. And Harry Truman oversaw the final push to finish the war in Europe. And it came from a variety of different directions. Massive bombing, crippling the economy. Soviets entering Berlin from the east, driving back the Germans and Italians on all fronts. Mussolini and Hitler going into hiding. Mussolini trying to escape, getting caught and stoned to death. Hitler hiding in his bunker committing suicide as opposed to even watching Germany have to surrender. It was an amazing turn of events after the Battle of the Bulge. In a matter of months, we were able to make our way into Berlin, so that finally in May of 1945, Germany will surrender. And we have VE Day, Victory in Europe. This is an ending, but it's also a beginning, because as we're liberating these places, now we have to figure out, what do we do with them? And we also have to figure out, what do we do with what we've discovered in these camps all across Europe, these places of horror and death. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. Your activity today is going to ask you about propaganda. You're going to have to take a look at some posters. You're going to have to make some conclusions about the posters, do some analysis about the posters. You're going to have to take a look at American propaganda on a different perspective. You're going to take a look at propaganda that we made for kids and get a feel for what we said about Nazis. And then you'll have some review questions. So this is going to be due tomorrow. All right? I look forward to seeing it.